Good morning, everybody. It is 9:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning here in Mesa, Arizona. Today we're supposed to be about 75 degrees in March. That's a nice temperature. It's beautiful today, sunny. The palm trees are swaying in the light breeze. I can see here from the porch. We are in this single wide unit at a RV park, a retirement RV park, visiting my wife's folks, as I mentioned before. And things are going pretty well. Just doing low-key things, and you'll hear the noise in the background. It's not the quietest RV park in the world. Near highways, we got planes going right overhead. There are a lot of activities and a lot of people going by, so apologize for the background sound. I'm sitting out here on the porch, and it's just too nice to be inside. But my wife is off getting a shower at a little satellite station where there are showers. Our unit here, the shower doesn't really work. Very well, so we go off to these, RV shower facilities and do that in the morning. So I'm just chilling out and talking to you. Want to talk about anxiety for a second. That's what we talk about a lot on this podcast, and that's probably one of the most primary focuses: life and anxiety and being human and learning to just, get along with others and relationships and meaning and, joy and struggles and suffering and, pretty much the gamut. Yes, I don't like to box myself into the corner on topics, so I like to talk about different things. But today I want to talk about anxiety, and I wonder how many other people do this. And I've been reading some articles on anxiety lately, and one of the things that we do, I think, a lot is distraction and avoidance. Probably both those keywords are really big, is distraction and avoidance. When I was coming off benzodiazepines, for those of you who are familiar with that stuff, a lot of symptoms, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering for a lot of people coming off those drugs. I was no stranger to that myself. Still have, like I said, neurological damage from that, but doing much better than I was. And that's a struggle. And you use distraction a lot to try to get through, because really, for the most part, to heal, all you can do is let time take its course. And eventually you start to get better. That's the path most of us go through. But it's hard. And distraction is not one of those tools that, your standard counselor or most psychological professionals will say is a great tool, because it's avoiding. Distraction is avoiding, and avoidance is a big factor. And you're avoiding dealing with what you're dealing right now, and that's something that with anxiety we deal with a lot. But when things are so hard right now for you, whether it's extreme anxiety or suffering or just a really bad situation, bad relationship, bad job, whatever, we look to that distraction to take our mind off things, to give us a little bit of relief, to escape. We do that so often. I'd even do smaller parts of that on this trip. One of the things I've done is, I know driving the 13, 14 hours down here from where we live north of Denver. And I made the mistake this morning of looking up the weather. And of course, we're talking rain, wind, and snow possibly coming back. It's still 6 days out, 5 days out or something, or 4 days out, I guess. But that's what we had going down. It was stressful. I didn't like it. And so then I start to think about it. And I start to obsess about it. And I start to plan. Oh, the anxious mind will drive you nuts. And so sometimes I do distraction or avoidance. For me, one of the avoidance things is I actually don't look up things most of the time. I purposely hadn't looked up weather since I've been here, because number one, it's far enough out, it's not going to be that accurate. Number two, I'm going to obsess about it. My ruminating thoughts will take over. Those looping thoughts, those things that just where you can't let go of the negative thing that's coming up. And so you don't enjoy the now. That is one of the key hallmarks, I think, of chronic anxiety. We can't let go. We can't let go of that obsession. We can't let go of the worry. We can't let go of the what ifs and what might happen. And weather on a drive is just a minor one of all these things, but so many have so many big things. As many have health things we're dealing with, like a doctor appointment coming up because they found a spot or a lump or something. and you have that in your mind, and you can't go see the specialist for another 3 weeks. Well, those 3 weeks can be pure hell for somebody with chronic anxiety because we can't stop obsessing. We can't stop thinking about it. And it will drive you nuts. And so we pull in tools, even some not as healthy tools like distraction and avoidance to deal with this. And sometimes those are the right thing to do, I think. I mean, we can't always obsess this. And I was talking about coming off the benzos when you're suffering so much and struggling with pain and these symptoms that can drive you nuts. And sometimes just distracting yourself for a little bit is a good thing. Distraction isn't bad. Again, I come back on this podcast, I'm going to come back more and more and more again to balance and moderation. Almost all the things in life, almost all, are not bad in moderation. There's some good and there's some bad. And distraction and avoidance can be helpful, especially during really critical times. I didn't watch news for 5 years coming off benzodiazepines because I was so susceptible to negative information. And I would obsess on it. I could read one news story and for, a day and a half, for 18 hours, I could be, I guess I can't do the math in my head. 24 hours is a day. For, up to 48 hours. You know what I'm saying. But for a day and a half, I could be obsessing on this. And it ruins my day and my next day sometimes. I couldn't let go. Now I can actually watch some news and it bothers me for 20 minutes or something, and I let it go. I'm so much better at that than I was, and part of that is my healing. Part of that is my tools that I put in place to learn how to focus more on the now, and that's a big factor in all this. A big factor. And that's embracing the now. And that's what I'm trying to do down here, and I've actually done pretty well. I pulled up the weather a little bit this morning, and yeah, it's kind of bugged me for the last hour or so, just in the background, not been major, but I'm going to let that go because I know I'm able to do that now. And I'm going to table that for a while and figure, you know what? We're going to get home. And maybe it takes us a little extra time. Maybe it's a little stressful for part of the drive, but we're going to get home. I've driven hundreds of thousands of miles around this country over my lifetime, and I'm pretty decent at it, and I know we're going to do fine. And I got my wife with me, who also is an excellent driver, and she is going to help us get through all this. So it's all going to work out okay. So why spend our time now worrying about that? And like I mentioned, for people who have health concerns going on, or relationship concerns, or career concerns, or whatever it is, or world politic concerns, or whatever it is that's gnawing at you, we have to ask ourselves two questions. One is this making me happy? Or is this making my life better? Might be the better question. And two, if not, what can we do about it? What can we do about that when we're already predisposed to have those ruminating thoughts, those thoughts that cycle through our head that we can't let go of? And my answer usually on this podcast and on previous podcasts that I did is there's a lot of anxiety tools out there. There's so many tools. You can find a million of them out there on the web through blog articles and YouTube videos and books and counseling. I'm not going to repeat all those here because that's not what this is about. This is about the personal experience and just having that connection of what we're going through. But I'm guilty. I'm guilty of this because I do it a lot. And it does affect my life severely sometimes, especially when it's something big that you know is coming up, that just sticks with you. But there's like two things. If there's something big coming up that maybe you don't want to do, you can always cancel it and get out of it, although some things in life we can't cancel and get out of. You also can just suck it up and go through it. And a lot of times that will show you that you can get through things and helps us on the other side. But as I mentioned on the Florida road trip, sometimes sucking it up and going through it and just powering through doesn't always pay off. But I tried, and I think trying is important because if it does pay off and you do get through it and that fear is no longer haunting you, that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing. And that was my fear of heights that I had on the Florida trip that I talked about in a previous episode. But sometimes you don't succeed. Sometimes you don't push through that. Sometimes you're left with, okay, so maybe heights still at this point, I'm not saying forever, but at this point is not something I want to work through right now. I can handle right now. I've come and gone through my life, and I know I'll get better at that at times. But we push through and we try to deal with these things. But distraction and avoidance, which is our primary core that I wanted to talk about today, are tools that you need to be careful of, because we can spend our whole life with distraction and avoidance. And that's not really living, because we're not dealing with the problem at hand. A lot of golf carts going by, because it's a retirement RV park, so lots of golf carts going by, as you're hearing in the background. But if you pay attention and study standard psychological principles, you'll realize that distraction is only a short-term solution, and even that isn't always that effective, because you're avoiding dealing with what the real problem is. And I'm not saying you always have to spend all your time dealing with the real problems, but you need to acknowledge them and deal with them sometime. I know what a lot of my core problems is, because I spent some time looking into them and figuring them out, and I'm fascinated by them because they're what make me tick. They're the reason why I think this way. They're the reason why I do so many things I do in life. They're the reason why I have this adverse reaction to somebody doing this. They're the reason why I avoid conflict, and why I so badly want to belong and so badly want everybody to like me. There's reasons behind that. And understanding those reasons really helps you, I believe, to help mitigate its effects. It really helps you to just lower down the consequences to ease the consequences of this obsessive thinking that we wind up in. And distraction and avoidance can help for a little bit with that. But at some point you need to deal with what's going on, with what's really going on, with what the core is of where that came from. That's where counselors can be helpful. I'm a fan of counseling with the right counselor for you. That's what I'd like to say, because I know there's a lot of bad counseling out there, a lot of counseling that actually just reinforces, stereotypes, or reinforces some negative patterns, or is so focused on finding, the inner, trauma in your life, your childhood trauma, that they're not paying attention to the now. That's where CBT comes in. I think it's more focused on the now and learning tools to deal with that. And I'm not against, some of the therapy, that's the deep talk therapy and stuff like that. Sometimes that's helpful, and that's dealing with those core problems. But you can also get caught there. Again, I go back to moderation. You can get caught in that deep therapy where it almost becomes your new addiction. Just like a drug. And drugs are big distractions for a lot of people. Many people turn to marijuana and heroin and meth and prescription opioids and benzodiazepines, like I came off of, to escape. And they work for a while. Then they don't. And then you have to deal with the consequences of taking them, as I have. And that's not pretty. But most things are healthy in moderation, like distraction or avoidance. You just got to be careful about getting caught to where that's all you do. So for me, a perfect example on this trip is, okay, so I got to drive back. I got a 14-hour drive, and I'll do most of the driving. I usually do. I drove all the way down here, not because my wife hasn't offered to help, just because I actually like driving sometimes. Not so much in the really stressful weather like we had coming down there, but most of the time I'm comfortable behind the wheel. It's what I like to do. But I'll let her help on the way home, and we'll get through that. But right now, for another 3 days, starting this morning, another 3 days, I'm down here at this beautiful place with a pool and hot tub, and they got concerts at night around the fire pit and with a bar, and you can go have food, and there's pickleball courts and tennis courts and all this cool stuff that my in-laws stay, and we're guests of them, and stay here and do stuff and make use of that when you have it. And that's what we need to do. And that's being mindful. A lot of this podcast will come back to some mindfulness principles because that's what got me through, and they're so important to have. But being mindful, being present in the moment are so important. But when we're anxious about something to come, or the what ifs, which, boy, I'm good at what ifs, and I know many of you are too. When you're so focused on the what ifs, you forget to live the now. And I talk this from experience because I do this all the time. But I've learned some tools, I've learned some tricks to try not to let that happen. To try not to let that happen. And I've gotten better at it. Today will probably be a good day. I'm not going to think much about the drive home at all, to be honest, because I know where I'm at now and I know how I can deal with things. And I'm going to let myself just go with the flow. We're going over to Mesa Mart, which is a huge swap meet flea market kind of thing outside. And looking forward to that, walking around and shopping and seeing things. And yesterday we went to the Musical Instrument Museum, which was a lot of fun, and got to see all these musical instruments from all around the world. And we're doing some fun things down here, and it's important to be in the moment and enjoy that while you're here. So primarily we're down here for my wife to be able to spend time with her folks, and myself to spend time with her folks, and just enjoy them while we still have them. Because unlike my parents, which I lost a couple of years ago, we still have them around, and we want to enjoy their time while they're there. Boy, I tell you, with age does come understanding of that and how important that is. So often in our life, we don't realize what we have until it's gone. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, is distraction and avoidance. And it's basically simply this. They're not bad short-term things now and then, but you got to be careful of getting caught in them. And on that note, my wife just walked back and said, "Hello, honey. I'm recording a podcast. Do you want to say hi?"
Hello.
Hello.
There's somebody at the pool that has your exact laugh. I swear you were at the pool.
I swear I wasn't at the pool. I've been sitting here the whole time. But thank you. I know. I can't believe I did that. I'll wrap this up real quick and come in and catch up with you.
I need to get ready.
Okay. My wife is sitting here as I'm talking, taking off her shoes. So this is the part of me that I'm really not good at. When somebody else hears me record a podcast, I get extremely awkward and nervous. I feel so weird. If I'm interviewing somebody, it's fine. But when somebody's watching me do something, I get really nervous and odd. Oh, there she goes. She took her shoes off and went inside. Okay, I'm back with you again. She's nice enough to know to leave me alone. That's probably a topic for a whole nother day. You know, it's one thing to get up. I love getting in front of a classroom. I can get there and talk to people like crazy, and I love that interaction and that kind of thing. But when I'm talking to you on the podcast, I don't want anybody around to hear me. I mean, there's something about that. It's just, I feel awkward. I feel maybe embarrassed. I don't know. It's just, I spill so much of myself out to this. I just want it to be just you and me and just having that conversation. So anyway, I'll wrap this up and I'll check back in with you pretty soon. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for paying attention. Thanks for still being this at episode, what are we, 30, 31? I don't know. I'm not keeping track while I'm down here very well of what episode number this is, because I'll review them and put them in when I get home. But whatever it is, thanks for paying attention. Thanks for listening. And just thanks for caring enough to try to improve your life a little bit. I'm hoping that's why you're listening to this, that you want your life to be a little better. With all of its complications, limitations, intricacies, challenges, whatever's going on, you believe that your life can be a little better. Maybe even a lot better, but we'll just start with a little better. And maybe, just maybe, you and I chatting on this podcast is a path in that direction. And if that's the case for just a few of you out there, then you've just made me very happy. So thanks for listening, and I'm going to chat with you again really soon, I promise. Take care. Bye.
Hey, this is Dee. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out our podcast. I do need to remind everyone that this podcast is for informational purposes only and should never be considered medical, psychological, or professional health advice of any kind. If you or someone you know is dealing with significant mental health issues, please seek professional help. Resources can be found in our show notes and on our website at unevenpodcast.com. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you on the flip side.